I'm Dr. Pete Economo, the East Coast psychologist.
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin, the West Coast psychologist.
And this is When East
Meets West.
It's the episode we've been waiting for, Nikki.
I
Dogs.
know. Dogs. Sorry, cat people.
Are we though? Sorry, not sorry.
Well, sorry, not sorry. Yes. Well,
sorry,
but sorry, just like they're listening to this going like, what, whatever.
Well, they've already clicked off, so now they're gone, so it's fine.
They've already. You're right. They didn't. You know, they didn't even click on it. So
they didn't click on it.
They saw the title. They're like,
yeah.
I don't want anything to do with that. They're slobbery. I don't want them. Yeah.
We are a little biased.
Yeah,
we are very biased.
A little? I was gonna say, let's.
We come from dog families. We have our dogs. Mm-hmm. We love dogs. I have said, and I say this to my clients, I like dogs better than humans.
And I also say that. And well, you know what I like to say?
What do you say?
This is a mean joke. People, I'll say, dogs are so much better than humans, and I should know. I'm a clinical psychologist.
That's right. That's right.
You know.
Yeah.
No, but I also love humans. Obviously,
I said that on a call the other day with. I said that on a call the other day with a bunch of athletic folks, and when I said it, they were like, "Well, Dr. Pete, coming from you," and I'm like, "Well, that's me." Isn't that validating, folks? Because you're struggling with the person in the office next to you. And this is exactly why, because my doggies are happy every time I get home.
That's right. That's right.
So this episode, we're going to talk about the behaviorism of dogs, which I will say, and Nikki, may I just call you out for a moment, please?
Please, yes.
You're gonna tell the story.
I know what it is. Yeah, I'm going to tell the story. So, I think I've said that. I think I've said it on here.
You have, but for those that haven't heard it, that Nikki has my aunt dog or my like what is she? She had, I know, but still in our hearts, she is still.
Yes, she's spiritually still she's
what
like
was she to me? Like
she's like the mother. She was like,
she was like the mother hen.
She was like the mother hen. She was like the queen bee.
Lola, we'll say her name.
Lola, her name was Lola. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so there's Nikki as a behaviorist and a very talented one with a not very well behaved dog. And
well, and the reason, so the joke I always say, so I had her for 15 years. She lived to be 15. She was a golden retriever.
She had a great life.
She had a really epic life. And I mean, part of the reason in my defense that she wasn't super well trained was that she was sort of like a human in a dog suit. Like was she not? There's certain dogs that you see, and like there's something like I say my dog Toby, where I'm like, you look in there, I'm like, Toby's a dog. Like there's nothing behind there but a dog's brain. Lola, I was like, I don't know what reincarnated human lives inside of your body, but there's an old soul in there. So she was too smart for her own good. But when people would say like, she's not very well trained, I would say, well, I got her when I was in college, and in college I was not a psychology major. I was a literature and creative writing major. And so I told this to Pete when we first met, and he said that to me. I was like, yeah, Lola's the dog of a 20-year-old creative writing major.
She sure is.
That's really, she was not the dog of a psychologist who specializes in behaviorism.
No, and she was a wonderful, but that being said, she had the greatest disposition. She was wonderful with other dogs, wonderful with other humans, but she was willful. Like, so when she wanted to
was extreme. She wanted, if she saw.
Which is also a golden retriever, which is part of their breed a little bit, I think.
A little bit, yes. But also.
I'm going to give you a little.
If she knew there was a tennis ball in the house somewhere, even if I brought her to someone's house and they swore all the tennis balls were put away,
she found it.
She would find it, and she wasn't allowed to have them because she ate one once and she almost died. Yeah, and
so I had to. Anytime we came over, I had to go through my entire house and take all the toys away.
But she would still find them, right? Remember,
she would climb. Did you ever find? Which she probably did in our house, because they were like under couches and
yeah, she'd find them like behind a VCR once. That was
so. And now you've got Toby, which is another golden retriever. So you're very loyal breed person.
Yes,
I have Tabitha and Marco. I grew up with dogs. You grew up with golden retrievers.
I grew up with golden retrievers.
Yeah.
My dad had one in college. Also, he had a golden retriever. Yep.
So dogs, what we know, and so if nothing else you take away from this, people with dogs actually live longer, have better cardiovascular functioning, and that is related to the oxytocin that is produced both by, just from touching an animal. It's also by like breastfeeding and sex and kissing.
Yes, it's well, and let me just add to that because yes, and I love to share that factoid
Yes.
with people. It's because oxytocin is like colloquially referred to as the love chemical. It's like the bonding chemical, the
Yes.
attachment chemical, what we bond with other beings. And so yeah, so I the way I like to explain it is so with so yes, it's released during childbirth and breastfeeding and during sex.
Yeah.
It's also released when we touch an animal. So when you're petting,
Yeah.
not just a dog, could be
I was
another
gonna say,
animal as well.
hey, cat people.
Yeah. Yeah, cat people, if you if you tuned in, here's your shout out.
If you
If you made it this far, when you're petting your dog, oxytocin is released in your brain and
Yeah.
in your dog's brain
How
or cat or
amazing.
whoever. Yeah, that's so
Animal.
amazing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah.
and Matchcock, there was this study in 2015 found that there was improved cardiovascular function, like we said already, decreased loneliness, and overall positive health outcomes. So we do see that people that
Mhm.
are animal owners, and I was talking to, it may have been on that sport call, or another colleague who said to me,
Mhm.
I'm always suspect when someone tells me they're allergic or don't like dogs.
Yes.
And
Actually, a former of my former boss in New York when I worked, he used to say that was the same thing. He felt it was like a clinical assessment if
oh,
people had
interesting.
no interest in animals at all. Though I do have to say I don't, I do have a friend who is who's a psychologist who's a wonderful, amazing human who had some negative experiences growing up, and
Of
so that
course.
inform. So
But
it
by the
can't,
way,
that
so did
that can't be a
I.
one size fit.
So did I. I mean,
True.
I got bit and chased when I was like, I think it was like
I
8
also
years
got
old.
yeah.
There was like
Yeah, I got me same.
did you? Yeah, like around the corner. And I was like a little anxious kid on some level and in
Mhm.
varying parts. And so there was this road that my parents never wanted us to go down. And one day I did, and I got like chased and bit by a dog. And so for a while I was like very, hesitant with dogs. And now I do that
Sure.
with my nieces because with those two nieces that I've talked about on
Mhm.
here, one of them, the older one, is seemingly like to have some anxious presentations, and she
Mhm.
became like just spontaneously more afraid of the dogs, and the other
Right.
one is like sticking out her tongue and awkwardly making out with my dogs. It's awkward. I've said to my brother and sister, I'm like, that's awkward. Your daughter is like obsessed. Like sometimes she was like,
Yes.
my niece was like on the driveway drooling while Marco was just like licking her.
Oh, well, I think what though, like it's very hilarious.
Yeah.
I also think that that speaks to I think there's like varying degrees, like with literally anything in the brain of like how oriented someone is towards animals, right?
Oh,
And their
sure.
connection to them.
Sure.
So like for you or me, even having had negative experiences, like for me, even though I never was afraid of them, and I was bit by a dog once when I was a kid, and I was like,
Yeah.
I actually look back on that, I'm like, I can't believe like I still just like so was obsessed with dogs my whole life,
Yeah.
so I think that part of that too is wiring, and so some people might just not be as oriented biologically,
So you think
and
that
actually,
people might be like predisposed in a way?
yeah, because actually, as I'm saying this, and I, it's not gonna surprise anybody based on this episode. I love to read about like the evolutionary history about the relationship between dogs and
Of
humans, and
course.
of course, I do. I just read another study the other day that was an article in the New York Times about it. Because it is important to recognize that it is a very ancient relationship between humans and dogs, and they
Yeah.
they do believe that this like symbiotic relationship evolved probably because it was wolves out there, the ancestors
Sure.
of wolves, that there was some that we got protection from them and they from us, though over time like that couldn't have just been it, that we did grow to get emotional
That's right.
support and connection. That's where the oxytocin comes in. So
Right.
just like with everything, there's something very old in our brains. Not everybody has that expression of it though, just right. Like not everybody has a phobia of snakes on the negative side, right?
That's right.
But we
That's right.
all, but we all sort of like have ancestors that were feared snakes for reasons that kept us safe. So
Yeah.
40,000 years ago, we all had the ancestral experience of having a connection with canines.
Right. Yeah, and so now there's all these different programs out there. So Fournier and colleagues had done a study, and there's lots of programs in prison systems now where
I
they.
love these ones.
I know
Oh,
you would.
yes.
Yeah.
I love, yeah.
And so using like fostering or even breeding, and they found that there improved social skills, they decreased the number of infractions, and
Mhm.
increased community involvement. So again, if we think about that from a healing perspective, so there's a lot of this animal assisted therapy, which
Yes.
many listeners may have heard of, like equine therapy with horses.
Mhm.
I think this is certainly in true American form been used and abused, because we got peacocks and stuff like that on flights as emotionally supportive dogs. But as psychologists, I don't know, I mean, we write these letters because the truth is they do help people. Now, and so I think, well, maybe there's one big differentiation here, is that an emotional support dog is not a service dog. And so, service dog is protected by, federal law, and they are trained from birth. Whereas, emotional support dog could be, Toby, Tabitha, Marco, as long as they can pass training and get this certification. But I can't go bring them into like a restaurant or supermarket because I feel like I need that. I can.
Right. Yeah. And I think that what understandably, the criticism of that, and of course this could be a whole other episode, is that, we all benefit psychologically from having animals and dogs around. That's what Pete was talking about earlier in the episode. And we do want to be mindful of, well, but do we need that? Versus somebody who, I love the programs that exist, for example, with veterans that have PTSD. There are a lot of programs where they have therapy dogs, and it reduces the symptom presentation, right? That's something that that needs that animal, which is different than just wanting the convenience of having the connection with your dog on an airplane, for example.
Well, but also then for someone who's not sighted, for like a seeing eye dog, right?
Yeah, of course.
That's a much different need. And so we bring them on, you see them on college campuses across the country during finals week, because finals week we've seen increase of suicides, and so bringing dogs on has kind of decreased that. You see them at airports. So helping,
in hospitals,
just walking around. Yep.
Yeah. And so, well, and then I think, and then the animals and the dogs, that they like it too. I think that's also something to keep in mind, is that they also benefit. It's a two-way connection, right? So I think, humans, this is maybe, a funny thing to say, but humans, we can be pretty self-centered as human beings, right? Right? We can be pretty and so I think even in this, there's obviously the focus is often on, in the research, how is it helping humans? But I think we just want to keep coming back to it's a bi-directional. They want to connect, and I think that's what I find so deeply special about them as a species, right? Is that they have a drive to connect with other beings, right? Both with humans and other dogs, and sometimes other animals. All the funny, the videos you can see of the dog and cat friend or whatever.
Love those.
Love those, right?
Well, and so Tabitha, one of my dogs, is certified therapy dog, and Marco failed the test. So, in a true, he's just a boy, but he failed because he couldn't separate from her. So there's certain things that they need to do in order. And the last thing, they have to sit, they have to stay, they have to leave. They have to do basic commands. They have to be able to be away from me. But the minute that they took him away from her, he was crying and he wanted to get back to her, and he couldn't be
oh, he's too attached. Yeah,
he was so attached. But we did, Nikki, tell the story of your bucket list experience that you and I had at Madison Square Garden in New York.
Oh yeah, I was like, what? But I was like, what is he talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Listeners, we do not prep any of this. Go ahead.
Yeah. We really don't. It's a real moment to conversation. Yeah, we went. I can't remember how you got the tickets for this.
My friend breeds Westies.
Okay. So your colleague.
Hey, we went to.
Thank you for the tickets. We went to the dog show at Madison Square Garden, and we went. I mean, if you guys didn't know already, Pete and I are pretty big dorks. And it was, I kept saying it was such a cultural experience for me, because it was also
wonderful.
it was very New York. Yeah. So being, the Angelino that I am, we met some lovely women that came out from Long Island.
Love them.
Yes.
They knew everything.
And they knew everything. And I was like, this is cool. I was like, I am having a real New York experience. And we got to go backstage and see all these amazing dogs. And I was like, I'm into this.
It was, that was such a cool experience on so many levels, and just seeing it, and I think just watching Westminster on TV, sometimes I could do it. So would you have any, it is a big responsibility having a dog or an animal, any animal.
It is, though, but very purposeful, right? I think it's like, a lot of times, I have had patients ask me before, like, is this a good idea? And I'm always like, I don't know. I'm like, but it can orient your schedule. You get outside and walk, you connect with other people, it can also, I'll add this dorky behaviorism plug. When you're working with a dog trainer or you're learning on your own, you are using operant conditioning, which is the same type of behavioral theory that we use in cognitive behavioral therapies. It's the same stuff. So there's actually a great book that a lot of like new students to behaviorism, like doctoral students read, which is called Don't Shoot. I think it's called Don't Shoot the Dog.
It is.
It's written by right. Yeah. It's written by a former. Wasn't like a former dolphin trainer wrote it or something.
I don't know actually who she is. I should know that. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, that's a great book if somebody's interested in both dog training and also just like how does this apply to human behavior?
It absolutely does.
Great.
So this was like so much fun, and just for the listeners out there, again, any kind of animals that touch oxytocin improves cardio health, decreases loneliness. There are programs out there where we're utilizing dogs to benefit various populations and helps you even just stay organized. This has been When East Meets West. I'm Dr. Pete Economo.
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin. Be present, be brave.
This has been When East Meets West. All material is based on opinion and educational training of Drs. Pete Economo and Nikki Rubin.
Content is for informational and educational purposes only.